fun to make one of our weekly videos, us talking about our birth stories with our first kids. And so here we go. Before we were expecting Zoe, I knew I wanted a natural birth. Like before we even started trying, I had a friend of mine that was going through a second pregnancy and soon to be second birth that had a really traumatic first experience. So she made it her personal mission to figure out like a natural approach because she was really unhappy with her hospital birth she had with her first. And so while she was going through that journey, I kind of followed along with it, and I started really doing some research and getting a lot of information before we were even expecting. So when we decided we were going to start trying, like I knew that that's what I had wanted. So positive pregnancy test pretty early on. We were really excited about that. And so I instantly went on a mission to find anything that was going to help support the fact that I wanted a natural birth. So I found a midwife. I actually used the midwife group at UNMC, the Med Center. Got it set up with them right away. And I started like already looking into like natural ways and natural remedies and things in pregnancy, especially those early symptoms. And so overall my pregnancy was, it was okay. I mean, it was kind of rough. I definitely complained a lot more than I probably should have, but pregnancy's hard. It's hard. It's hard on your body. And it's a lot of things I like really didn't expect. And so we got through. Everything was pretty smooth sailing. We didn't really have a whole lot of, we didn't have any complications or any problems. The only issues I really dealt with, and we kind of talked about it back in the chiropractic video, is that Zoe was living like up in my ribs. So from like 28 weeks on, 29 weeks on, I was seeing a chiropractor regularly to kind of help adjust and work on my ribs. It was rough. It was really miserable. That was probably the worst part of it. But other than that, like health-wise, baby and I were completely fine. I always measured a little bit big, but we were never really concerned about it or anything. And so then we took, one of the other things we did in pregnancy as well as we took a natural minded birthing class. And so we got a lot of really good information there. And when I was at that class, the conversation of a doula came up, and I had never heard of a doula before, even knew what that was. So we started doing some research, and we found Amber, the lady that you met last week, a dear friend of mine, and we hired her as our doula. And I 110% will tell you that my birth ended up the way that it did because I had a doula. There's a lot of things that I had to do personally, a lot of mental things that I had to go through, and obviously I endured it, but there's no way it would have went the way that it did if we did not have her there, which kind of led me to the journey that I'm on now of actually becoming a doula myself, working as and certifying as a doula myself. So, yeah, so like I said, leading up to that, everything was fairly normal. With the midwives, you know, it's very hands-off as far as pregnancy. So I didn't have cervical checks. I didn't have really any of that done. So not that that's the crystal ball, but for us, like it was really just kind of and people would come up to me and they're like, so what are the doctors saying? And I'm like, that we're having a baby. Like they haven't measured. We're not doing any of that stuff. We're just kind of seeing. So like most first-time moms, the last like 3 weeks of pregnancy, I was very sure that every pinch, every pain, every ache, everything that was it. Like that was labor. And so I'd get like really kind of excited, and then it wouldn't end up being anything. And so it was kind of really kind of nerve-wracking to kind of sit there and wait for that to happen. And my husband, Kyle, he gave me such a hard time. Like anytime I would even move and be like, oh, he'd be like, oh, contractions, like, and kind of make fun of me because it never was. And so that kind of led into, you know, really interesting when the contractions actually started. So I was 39 weeks pregnant in a couple of days. And I was at school, and during the day, like my back was just killing me, the worst lower back pain ever. And my mom told me that that's what she experienced when she ended up actually having me. I was way late. And so when I like heard her say that, I was like, okay, you know, maybe this is it. So we went and we walked the local outdoor mall for like an hour and a half, and like I was definitely feeling the tightening, but then it would subside and it was nothing. So I went to bed that night after packing my lunch for work the next day, like totally prepared to go to work. And about midnight, I started feeling contractions, or started feeling some, I guess, discomfort at that time. And I kind of started paying a little bit of attention to them, and I realized it was coming a lot more regularly. And I was like, okay, this might be it. So I kind of laid there a little bit longer than I should have, probably paying attention to them. I should have just slept. But once we kind of got through a little bit of that and kind of, figure out what was going on, I was trying to fall back to sleep. And at one point I rolled and I kind of was like, oh, as a contraction happened. And of course, Kyle, laying next to me, rolls over and he goes, ugh, contraction? And I'm like, yeah, actually it is. I am not kidding you guys. He shot out of bed, pulled on his pants, his shoes, everything, was like fully dressed. And I'm like, Kyle, like these just started. It's nothing. And then he laid back down and fell back to sleep in his shoes, which I thought was hilarious. So for the rest of the night, I tried to sleep as much as possible, but there was definitely excitement. So we were living in Fremont. We were going to be delivering in Omaha. So about a 35-minute drive into Omaha and then another like 15 minutes to the hospital. And so when we woke up in the morning with our normal school and work alarms, we were like, okay, let's just head into Omaha. It makes us feel better. So we headed into my mom's house. And so, I experienced contractions going through that. They were pretty regular, nothing too intense. I could still talk through them pretty well. We contacted our doula, Amber, and she gave me some suggestions of things to do, like the miles circuit, and just a couple of things like, okay, rest when you can, make sure you eat, and all of that. And so she joined us probably about like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because everything started to become really intense. Like I was eating a Jimmy John's sandwich, and I'll never forget, like halfway through I was like, I need to go lay down. And I just had like that moment of like, this contraction, I'm not going to be able to just sit and talk through like I was before. And so she came over and she observed and kind of watched us and stuck around with us till about 5 or 6 p.m. that night. My contractions were coming super regular, super close together. I was not able to talk through them or walk through them or do anything. And so she looked at us and she goes, okay, guys, I think it's time. Let's go ahead. So we headed to UNMC, checked in. They checked me. I was 3 centimeters. 3 centimeters. I'm like, seriously, that's it? I was really disappointed. So they're like, it's okay, just walk the halls, do your thing, do your normal thing. So we walked. We got pretty far from the room and I had like a meltdown, complete meltdown. I was so depressed that I was only 3 centimeters. The contractions were incredibly intense. And like I said, they're coming like every 3 to 4 minutes apart, which is pretty it's pretty close together for only being 3 centimeters. So I like literally was on my hands and knees on the floor, like crying at one point because I'm like, I just can't do this. And my dear Amber comes up to me and she grabs my face and she goes, honey, you are not having this baby in this hallway. You got to get up. We need to walk. So it took me probably about 30 minutes to get back to the room. Got back, tried to relax as much as possible, and it just was not happening. So the very sweet nurses gave me something to help me sleep, which was nice. And so all of us rested that night and slept. I don't really remember there being, I know the contractions continued. They definitely were consistent, but I was so tired at that point that I was able to kind of sleep through them. So we woke up in the morning. It was about 6 a.m. They came in, they checked me again, and I was still 3 centimeters. Talk about like a total bummer. It sucked so bad. I had been working so hard. I had been doing all of this, and thankfully, like despite what normally happens in a hospital, the resident that was on call came up to me and she goes, I'm sending you home. And I was like, you're doing what? And she goes, if you want your natural birth, you need to go home now because you're not going to get it if you stay because there's certain protocols, certain things we have to do. So that was even worse because, not only am I only 3 centimeters, but now they're sending me home, even though this is labor. Like it's for sure labor, but it's just not progressing. Now that I look back, that is the single most beneficial thing that happened, because if she would not have sent me home and I would have stayed at that hospital, all kinds of interventions would have happened. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So we loaded everything up. They sent me home with a prescription for Ambien to be able to sleep, which I was not super excited about, but at that time I was also desperate. I knew I was going to need some rest. So we got everything ready to go, and I vividly remember the drive home. First off, Amber suggested that we get something to eat because it had been a little while since we'd eaten anything. Nothing sounded good. Nothing. But it was doula orders. So we stopped at McDonald's and I was like, okay, go get me a smoothie. I'm okay with that. So I'm laying in the car, window rolled down, the drive-thru's crazy. Kyle goes in to get me a smoothie. Orders my smoothie. They take forever. At one point, he finally goes up to the counter and he's like, is someone going to give me my smoothie? My wife's in the car in labor. And so it was like somebody pulls up next to me, to park, and I'm like, contracting in the front seat. It was horrible. And then we had to go to Walgreens to pick up my prescription. And so when we get there, I sent Kyle in because I'm like, again, like, I'm not getting out of this car. And he's like, what if they like ask for you? And I'm like, you tell them I am in the car and I'm having contractions. They can come see me. Sure enough, they didn't like give him any troubles, which was great. So we got home. I took half an Ambien. I wasn't not super excited about taking it. Took half an Ambien, tried to rest. It wasn't happening. The contractions, again, were still pretty consistent, about 3 to 4 minutes apart, about a minute, 15, minute and a half long. It was rough. It was bad. So Amber went home to kind of get a little bit of rest. We rested as well. And then we called her back up and we're like, we need you to come back. And so at that point, we decided she suggested we get into the chiropractor. Why not? Can't hurt, right? So we were able to get into an appointment about 1 o'clock that afternoon, 1:30. We drove out to my chiropractor, to Allie's office, walked in, and she's like, hi, how are you? And I'm like, I'm in labor. She's like, what? So we kind of told her the whole story, kind of gave her the lowdown, and she asked if I was interested in doing acupuncture. And prior to that, I would have been like, nobody's sticking me with needles. But at this point, I'm like, I don't even care. Do what you got to do. So I had acupuncture in labor. We did a full adjustment, and that all is very hazy to me. I really don't remember a lot of it at that point. I was just kind of out of it. I was exhausted. We got in the car, we headed back to my mom's house, and at that point, I kind of lost it again. I looked at Amber and Kyle, and I said, I'm done. Like, I just can't do this anymore. We need to go to the hospital. I don't want to walk anymore. I don't want to try to sleep. At this point, if baby's not ready, we gotta do something, because I just can't do this. So we loaded everything up. This drive to the hospital was much harder than the day before. We got to the hospital again about like 5 o'clock, I think. Yeah, about 5-ish. Walked in. I had a nurse that was like, oh, we thought we would have seen you hours ago. I'm like, seriously? Like, the last thing I want to hear right now. It was just one of those, like, I was pissed off at everything. I didn't want to talk to people. I'm like, just tell me that something's better. So we walked in, and they came in and they checked me, and I was 6 centimeters. Amber and I both bawled like the second they said 6, because it had finally gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, we're progressing, like things are happening. And it is incredible. At that exact moment when they told me 6 centimeters, my energy level went from a 0 to a 10. I was like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to run the halls? I can do lunges. I can do jumping. Like, what do we need to do to get baby going? And they're like, okay, take it easy. But I was super excited. So I spent a lot of time in the tub for comfort. It was really comfortable to be in the jacuzzi tub. We did a lot of changing of positions. And then finally, like at 9 centimeters, they're like, you know, your water's still intact. It's bulging. And I was like, let's just break it. Why not? Let's just get things going. So they broke that, and things just moved along really smoothly. So then I was able to find like a total peace and a total comfort. So I was doing a lot of swaying. My attitude and everything, demeanor, just completely changed at that moment. It was fantastic. So we got to 10 centimeters, and they're like, okay, we're ready when you are. And so I just remember being like super excited at this point. So yeah, so 10 centimeters, and they're like, okay, we're ready when you are. So again, I have that energy. I'm ready to go. So pushing was super successful. I was super ready to do it. I was excited. Really at that point, like any fears or anything about like baby being born, about pain, it was just all gone. I was so excited to be like at the, I don't know, the last 100 meters, I guess, if you want to say. And so pushed, and it was really good. I mean, didn't push very long. I think about like about an hour-ish, nothing too much. The cool thing is before we decided, before any of the birthing even happened, we decided that my husband was going to catch the baby, Kyle. So at one point they're like, okay, Dad, come on over here. Like, we're ready for you. And they totally gowned him up, and he still was wearing his baseball cap, which I was kind of surprised they didn't make him take it off. So that was kind of funny. We have some really cute pictures of that. But the resident that was with us on day 1 and was there for the birth as well, it was her 100th birth. So that was really exciting. So a couple really good pushes, and she was here, and it was amazing. A moment full of emotion. I was so proud of myself for everything that I had accomplished, and everything that we were able to do. So they handed her to me. She was happy and healthy. 7 pounds, 13 ounces. She was born at 11:13 at night on May 13th. Her chest was 13 and a half, head was 13, maybe. So 13 was her lucky number, and we still definitely celebrate that. But it was incredible. It was incredible. It was exactly the birth I wanted. It's kind of funny, you know, it changed a little bit. I never would have anticipated that long, but 46 hours from first contraction to baby being born, which is crazy. 36 hours of active labor, 2 trips to the hospital, chiropractic and acupuncture, and me yelling at my husband about going into Walgreens and telling them I was in labor. But it was great. It was great. I was so glad that we had surrounded ourselves with the team that we did. I was really happy. The midwife that was on call was fantastic. We loved her. Had some really good laughs and had a lot of really good moments with her. My doula proved to be worth every stinking penny, if not more. And that's, you know, I mean, ultimately all of it is why I became a doula myself. I still, like I said at the beginning, there's no way we would have been able to do what we did without her love, her support, her tough love at times, her keeping me on track and reminding me what my goal was. And I needed that. It was great. It was a great moment for my husband and I. And so from that moment on, like, I knew that my next was going to be natural. I mean, that's always been the plan. And so with this one, we're using a midwife as well. In a hospital birth center is the plan, as long as everything still continues to stay healthy, which is exciting. And so we're taking steps to prepare for that natural birth. I'm definitely doing things a little bit different this time around. We ultimately think, we don't know, we ultimately think that Zoe was just off kilter just a tiny bit. Nothing that caused distress, nothing that caused anything to happen with her heart rate at all, or my heart rate, or anything, but just off enough that adjustment just shifted her a tiny bit and got things moving. And so yeah, it was incredible. It was amazing. The best moment of my life, the strongest moment of my life, the story that I love to tell, and I tell it all the time because I'm very proud of it. I never considered myself to be a strong person, and now I look back and that was and will always be one of my strongest moments. And I'm excited to share that with Zoe, like to tell her that story. So yeah, we had a lot of really great things pan out for us. And like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with prep. We did a lot of prep. I was prepping before we were even trying. So, it was great. It was great. I love my birth story. I love to tell it. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed hearing it. If you have any questions about anything, that happened or anything, feel free to share them below. I'd love to answer any of your questions because, like I said, I love to talk about it. It's something I'm very proud of. So yeah, we appreciate you joining us this week on Kelsey and Eryn Make a Baby as we talked about our birth stories, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.